F1 video game series by Codemasters is a dream come true for F1 fans. It's a perfect pit stop between real life races, but also one of the few opportunities to drive any of the contracted cars as one of the iconic F1 drivers. Naturally, there's no comparison between the thrill of rooting for your favourite team or driver, watching one of the 23 Grand Prix this year, and virtually jumping behind the wheel of one of these beastly cars to try to win the championship. However, playing F1 2021 has its benefits since you can pick it up anytime you feel like racing, but what makes it feel more interesting than an actual race is you get a sneak peek at what's happening behind the scenes. For the first time in the history of the series, the game features a story mode that introduces players to what's happening behind the scenes in an F1 team. You might think that this is a mistake or resources wasted, but this is actually very good and makes newcomers and veterans understand the chemistry between two drivers in the same team. The story mode is split in two acts and offers players the chance to experience an entire F1 World Championship from the perspective of a young driver who's made the jump from Formula Team and a veteran who's lost their mojo. More than anything, if you don't like the chit-chat in between GP races, you'll gain a lot of experience learning how to drive a F1 car. Dubbed Breaking Point, the story mode in F1 2021 puts players into the shoes of young Aiden Jackson and a soon-to-retire veteran Casper Okerman, with even an antagonist Devon Butler from F1 2019. The narrative is mostly conveyed through cutscenes and phone conversations, but the meaty part consists of certain objectives you must attain during races. It rarely happens that you'll drive an entire 15-lap race in story mode, as the challenges you'll face involve mid-race situations like a mechanical failure and your reaction to it. Just about every objective in story mode requires you to recover from an unfavourable situation and, against all odds, finish above a specific driver or team. It's an interesting approach that makes Breaking Point a very interesting part of the game. Although the overall cutscenes and voice acting are quite decent, there are moments where I couldn't ask myself where a certain conversation made it to the game, since it didn't add anything interesting to the story. Beyond the 6 to 8 hour stories in the Breaking Point, there's a complex My Team mode where you get to create your new F1 team from scratch and try and win the championship. It goes very deep into customization, so you'll be able to choose livery, sponsors, and even set up your own R&D department that will focus on aspects you think will help your team the most. On top of that, you either get to choose to play as one of the current generation F1 drivers such as Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen, or you can put your own name on the starting grid. To benefit from the upgrades developed by the R&D department, you'll have to win points in practice session and Grand Prix races. Speaking of practice sessions, these are meant to determine the optimum amount of fuel you should start with or provide you with a recommended tyre for a certain race. Each comes with secondary goals, the reward resource points when it's been achieved. Of course, you should choose to skip these if you want to primarily focus on the actual Grand Prix, but you'll hardly take advantage of the R&D department at your fullest. But before you start your first race, though, it's important to choose a level of difficulty that suits your playing style. As a newcomer to the series, there's no shame in starting with casual mode and making the transition to standard later when you feel more comfortable. However, I recommend to check out some additional settings that make F1 2021 experience closer to the pure simulator of real life. There are a bunch of assists hidden under the settings in F1 2021 which can completely change your driving experience. If you selected casual mode, you won't have to bother with any of the assists, but if you want a bit more challenge, I recommend disabling some of them, such as steering, braking, anti-locks, traction control, gearbox, racing line, pit assist, pit release assist, ERS and DRS. Also, before you start every Grand Prix, you're invited to review the race strategy. Basically, you're presented with a default and an alternate strategy, but the game doesn't tell you can gain a lot of extra seconds by adjusting the fuel. By default, the game will add a few laps of fuel to the car, but since you're going to make a pit stop anyway, it's better to start with less fuel to avoid extra weight, which typically leads to slower speeds on track. Then you'll have to take care of the tyre, so you'll want to take corners as smooth as possible, especially on the exits. Don't be aggressive when you exit a tight corner, instead accelerate slowly and avoid putting extra pressure on the tyre. These are just some of the small things that can help you be faster when racing against better cars. The driving experience in F1 2021 has been fine-tuned, so I have to say it's the best it's ever been. The amount of customization and the addition of a story mode makes F1 2021 not only the most accessible game in the series, but also the perfect time sink for die-hard sim enthusiasts and F1 fans alike. Also, in your solo player My Team Career Mode and normal career modes, it offers dozens of hours of pure fun as you can build your team from scratch or start with an already established team and help them to win the F1 crown. The near perfect handling model and the superb tracks turn into an superlative driving experience that none of the previous games in the series have achieved. This is hands down the best looking F1 game and a great launching point for the next title in the series. Anyway guys, that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, let me know your thoughts, comments down, and follow me on Twitter, link and subscribe to me for daily F1 news, and subscribe to my channel on the screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching, peace!